Welcome back, day 2, fitting a nitro engine onto a Traxxas TRX-4M. Same spot, same stuff. Working with the engine mount now. I've got these L-bracket mounts that I've actually spun around so that the mount is thinner than the pull start, so it'll sit between the frame rails. And I am taking the rear shock mount, and I've drilled holes, because that sits right like there. So I need a couple little spacers. I'm going to be using some Endura 2.5mm spacers. That's 2.5mm diameter in various sizes, and we're going to get this engine dialed in to fit with that slightly up-angled transmission shaft. So let's knock that out. Okay, so engine mounted, question mark. I've got these two screws going through holes in the rear frame rail that kind of pinch against the pull start so it doesn't rock back, because that mount, as I thought it would be, is pretty flexible and it'll let it roll around. So we do have gear mesh. It's a little choppy, but shouldn't matter too much. Definitely won't hear it over the sound of the engine. So that's all set. I'm going to swap out the carburetor, and I guess we'll mount an exhaust and see where it goes on the body, and we will keep chugging. Okay, so I've done away with the shock mounts. So I've mounted that shock directly onto the frame rail, and I'm going to cut this off because I only have two choices of manifold, and this plastic one from Turnigy is the longest of the two, and it still doesn't clear the shock mount. So I'm going to cut the shock mount off, which will let me mount my exhaust manifold like this, which will let me put my pipe right about here, which is what I wanted to have the pipe hidden. I'm trying to go for a T-Max look with the engine sticking out of the top of the body, but that is going to look pretty sick. So let's keep chugging. Alright, we are going with the exhaust mounted there. Cut that shock mount off. Exhaust looks nice. I've already swapped out the carb for a rotary style, and now I'm building the fuel tank. So putting that together, we'll mount it across the transmission, or just in front of the transmission. Alright, coming along here, I've got the fuel tank zip tied down, but it is tied and secure. I've got this receiver from when I made my 18th scale or 16th scale Nitro Slash, and MG90 servo for throttle. I think I'm going to mount it on the transmission. Not sure yet. I've got to find some place to put the receiver and some place to put the battery. The lights in the body will still work, but it's coming together. All right, we got throttle. Figured that out. Got a 10th scale servo arm on the throttle body, but I've got throttle. Now I got to figure out brake. So receiver goes on top. The servo's actually glued onto the front half of the transmission housing, so it's still disassemblable, but I don't have any room for like an extra servo mount, so that's where it goes. This battery I'll probably have to throw on top of the shock towers with the extension wire, but we got throttle. So let's figure out brakes. Alright, Beans, thought I'd show you my brake setup, which, like all my other conversions, seems to use fuel line tubing because it's really grippy and heat resistant. So we got throttle, which moves the two-sided servo arm, and this honestly is a T servo arm that I cut 2 teeth off of. That's mounted into a hole in the, I guess it would have been the original battery tray location with a single screw. Anyways, so that's throttle open, and then when we go throttle closed, this actually pulls on that piece of fuel line tubing that goes all the way up and over to the other side of the chassis. It's zip tied on both sides, so it's just barely loose. And I have this piece of wire to keep it from being pushed forward and off the clutch bell, but when you push it, it applies pressure and pushes the silicone tube on, so it skids the tires, doing pretty good. Now just mount the battery, and I guess we'll see if it starts. Alright, another update. Got my battery mounted, going vertical so it can actually still clear the steering servo here. And now I'm trimming out the bed, so I have to put the bed in this thing, set it on top, mark out what engine parts hit, cut it out. So far we're snipping away. Alright guys, here it is. I've already driven it on the track actually. I'll show you some of that later. But red engine poking out of the back. Kind of looking for like a old T-Max Nitro Stampede kind of vibe. And the antenna tube really is where I put the antenna. I didn't know how else to manage the antenna length, but I think that looks cool, right? A little CV action going on back there. But all finished. Fueling it is a little weirder than my previous builds. I didn't put a third fuel line in here. It's just to the carburetor and from the exhaust. So you've got to undo the carburetor and pump fuel in that way. But you know, whatever. You need a bottle. It's got a connector of some type to squirt the gas in there. But got a 1S 800 milliamp battery powering a Traxxas TQI receiver with the original Traxxas radio. And that means I have to use all mechanical trims on the throttle because there is no throttle trims, which I don't appreciate, Traxxas, if you're watching. For brake down here, we've got this 90-degree that turns and pulls fuel line against the clutch bell. The headlights do still work, so those are still up and running. And yeah, just really cute. It's actually pretty quiet. Let me start it up for you here and you'll see what it's like. Okay, well, not today. Ran out of time, but I think this engine doesn't have enough compression. It ran once on the track. I got it to run and drive, but now I cannot get the damn thing started again. I've gone through 2 different carburetors and all kinds of settings and just will not fire up. So we're gonna swap in a different engine tomorrow, and maybe I'll have a running and driving video for you. So stay tuned. Thanks for watching.